And then the other one is Awakening
the Temple Priestess. Yes. So,
how is that different or blended from?
So Awakening the Temple Priestess really came from an exploration into goddess traditions. You see, like the themes through my life have been women and power. And so I've explored that through dominance, being a femdom, but I've also explored that through researching some of the matriarchal cultures in which women were in which women led and women ruled and women were the decision makers, and creation or sexuality or the womb or the ability to have children was considered a sacred and an honored thing and a valued thing, rather than something that has been, in this day and age, has been taken down to a level of less importance, of very little importance in many cases. And so I started doing research into my own history. My mother is from Iraq, and that particular region of the world in ancient times was known as Babylon or Mesopotamia. Mm-hmm. And it used to be a matriarchal culture there originally. And so doing research into that, I began to find a lot of value in looking at that way of looking at the world from a matriarchal perspective, and looking at women today who I come in contact with all the time, and seeing that there was something about that is missing in the lives of women today. And I don't know if there is an inherent devaluing of themselves that happens as a result of living in a society that is patriarchal. Right? It's the script.
Yeah.
It totally. So I wanted to explore the idea that this archetype of the temple priestess, of the woman who once felt called to tend to the goddess and be in the temple and be the intermediary between spiritual energy and physical energy, that her sexuality was celebrated, that woman who occupied that role, could that archetype be taken and applied to women today? Mm-hmm. So what that workshop does, the Awakening the Temple Priestess, it looks at some of the attributes of the Temple Priestess of ancient times and looking at how that has value
today
for women today.
Love it.
So,
what do you have a couple things you could...
Yeah, well, we could start, I don't want it without giving away the whole workshop.
Yes, exactly. Yep. A teaser.
A teaser. The idea that your sexuality, is for you. We are taught that sexuality is something you do for your partner. We are taught that sexuality is something you do when you're in a relationship. We're taught that sexuality has to look like X, Y, and Z. We're never taught that your sexual energy is your own, as I said earlier, your own life force energy. Mm-hmm. It is something that you can nourish and care for of your own accord, because it's you. It's the energy that makes you you. And so people think that they can only engage with their sexual energy if they're in a relationship.
Yeah, over there.
Mm-hmm. It's always outside of ourselves, right? And we never really come to a personal relationship to our own sexual being that is based strictly on us, not on what anybody else has told us, not on what the media has told us, not on what our friends have told us, not on what our partners have told us, just based on our own experience of our bodies, our own experience of ourselves.
And we're talking about more than masturbation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I will say to people, have an orgasm every day. Mm-hmm. But what that translates into, it could translate into a physical orgasm, but everybody can think of a time in their life when they had a physical experience. Like, let's say you went and traveled somewhere and you hiked to the top of a mountain and you're looking down over this beautiful expanse of nature and you were moved to tears. That is still orgasmic energy. Or the idea of, somebody doing something that they love, like an artist or a musician, and being so completely in the moment that it's almost like time is not passing.
It's like vibing on a frequency.
Yeah. Being in total flow with the moment. Mm-hmm. That is the same energy.
You're saying creative energy, like
Creative
before,
energy
is kind of related.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can explore your own sexual energy, yes, through masturbation, which I don't even, personally, I don't really like that word. I prefer the word self-pleasure.
Self-pleasure, yeah.
Just because it has less negative connotation. But, all of the places where you can incorporate more pleasure into your life, whether you are experiencing that pleasure through self-pleasure in a traditional sexual sense, or through doing the things that just bring you pleasure, whatever those things are, it will result, the end result will be the same. You will have more energy. You will be a happier person. You'll feel healthier. It has a spillover effect.
Yeah, like this is probably the deeper root of where this whole self-care kind of fad or, thing that's kind of happening, where people are like, self-care is more than taking a bath.
Yes.
And eating chocolate. You know what I mean? Like
true.
Self-care Sunday or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like this is the deeper meaning of self-care.
Yes. And yes, absolutely. I mean, it's become, the word self-care has almost become cliched because everybody's like, oh yeah, self-care. Yeah, I'm going to go do a bubble bath and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And there is a role for that too. But at a more core level, it's doing the things that bring you pleasure and incorporating more pleasure into your life and prioritizing pleasure.
Yes.
Prioritizing pleasure, right?
It's like, yeah.
It's like everybody, like there's nobody who would disagree with this, but we don't do it,
Yeah, why don't we do it?
Well, it's a really good question.
Why not do it? Who would ever say no?
I have my theories.
Yeah. While you were talking about the kind of heritage of your culture and whatnot, I want to ask, who is Shahrazad? Where did you get
Shahrazad, yeah.
Where did you get that name from? What does that mean to you?
So Shahrazad is actually the name that I took on when I first started working as a pro dominatrix, and it comes from the story of the 1001 Arabian Nights, which is a classic piece of literature. And in the story, there was this king, and he got really mad at, I think it was the queen, for some reason. I don't know if she wouldn't have kids with him, or she wouldn't, I don't know, whatever it was, he got pissed off with her. And so he decided that he was going to take his revenge on all women by killing her. And then every night took another lover and then killed her, and said that he was going to continue to do this as revenge for his wife not doing what she was supposed to be doing. So Shahrazad was a storyteller. And her name actually means woman of the city. But she was a storyteller and quite gifted at it. And she decided that she had had enough of this king killing off all these women. And so she seduced the king. And what she did to distract the king was that every night she would tell him a different erotic story, but she would never finish it. So every night the king wanted to find out what happened next, and so he didn't want to kill her because he was like, I have to hear the end of the story. So she wove this very fantastical tale that went on for days and days and days and days and days and days and days until eventually the king gave up on his plan to kill all the women, and she saved the women in the city from more murders. Murders.
More murders.
So I kind of identified with her in the sense of the fact that as a pro-dominant, I weave stories. I weave people's erotic narratives, and go into them and explore them and weave them in ways that people maybe weren't even aware of. And every day brings a different story as each person shares their psychoerotic experience with me. So that's why that name is near and dear to my heart.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're just about getting at time, unfortunately, for me and everyone else listening to you. Are you able to tell us where we might find you, take in your classes, workshops, connect with you possibly?
Absolutely. So you can connect with me via my website, which is www.theritualchamber.com. goodforher.ca. And that is for dungeon rentals, for sessions with any of the pro dominants, or any of the workshops that I teach out of there. You can also find me doing workshops at Good For Her, a local sex shop in the city that is women run. And their website is www.goodforher.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Shahrazad TRC. That's at SHAHRAZAD TRC, or at Ritual Chamber TO. Both of them will connect to me.
You're so much better at this outro stuff than me. Watch me butcher my outro now. Totally butcher it.
Go for it.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with me today. I can't even.
You're so
everyone,
welcome.
This has been Shahrazad, and I'm Erin Pym, and this has been the Bedpost Podcast. Check back weekly, everyone, because we release a new podcast every single Friday. And you can also check out our YouTube content that we are now releasing every Monday. If you want to see the Bedpost stage variety show here in Toronto, you can come to the Social Capital Theatre at 8 every second Friday of the month, or you can come to the Super Wonder Gallery at 9 at the last Tuesday of every month. If you want to shoot me an email at the bedpost, the bedpost sex show at gmail.com. I would welcome any comments, questions, suggestions, flirts. Also, we want to thank Eggplant Media and everyone here at the Pacific Junction for making all our YouTube content possible. And lastly, I want to give a huge shout out to Stephanie Copeland, who, if you're listening to the audio podcast recording of this episode and all my episodes, she does all the original music for it, and she's absolutely amazing. So just check her out as an artist. She also scores horror movies like in her full-time life, and she's a pop artist. Very, very cool. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thanks again to you, Shahrazad.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And bye, everybody.
Bye.